Good afternoon all, this is Craig, Carrick Piper, here at Carrick Studio in North Cork in Ireland, and we're outside once again enjoying the sunshine. It is a warm day, although the wind is a little bit nippy, but not too bad. Anyway, no need for coats today. I've just got a light jumper on and enjoying one of my new favourites, Baren Dark Twist. Absolutely love that. If anyone has some and they want to sell me some, let me know. Anyway, today we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic, one that I've been interested in for a long time, and I never really bothered to do an awful lot of research into it, but I decided, you know, a few people have asked, and Frank, you were the latest one to ask, and I thought, right, let's address this issue. What's the difference between casing, flavourings and topping? Because believe me, there's a big difference. And after doing much research, I wrote myself a document and I thought, right, I'm going to have a video about this because it's really interesting. And if I can, I'll attach a link to the document in the description of the video so that you can have a look at it yourselves and yeah, see what you think. Now, I am not a true expert in any of this. So this information that I have here is stuff that I've actually researched and found out myself. Not because I knew it, I didn't. I had an understanding, but not an actual correct understanding. So, I'm sure you'll all find it interesting. I did. I mean, it's something that we all have to deal with on a day-to-day basis when we're smoking our pipe. Is that flavouring? Is that topping? What is that? Is that casing? What's that flavour? What's that scent? How did they get it there? Well, I'm going to try and go through it as simply as possible, really, because in fairness, it's a very intricate and delicate process that takes years to perfect, and people devote their whole careers to this, don't they? So me being able to explain this in 30 minutes or less is only going to be scratching the surface in real terms, but it should be of some assistance to us. So I'm reading from a script here, as in my document that I've wrote, because I can't remember all of this, and anyway I want to make sure it's accurate for you. But basically, as I said, we have the three areas. We have casing, topping and flavouring, and each one of them is used for a different purpose. So let's start with number one, casing. We've all heard of it, and the definition is basically casing is a solution applied to tobacco leaves, before processing to improve the moisture, reduce harshness and add some subtle flavour. And that's the definition. So breaking that down a little bit further into the purpose as to why, well, it balances the natural tobacco harshness, because tobacco naturally is quite harsh. It helps in the fermentation and the aging process of the tobacco, and it adds a mild underlying sweetness or spice. Okay, so it doesn't actually flavour it, it just adds to it, adds to the actual process of how you deal with the fermentation of the actual tobacco itself. Now there are a few different ingredients, and this is not a complete list, all right? This is just some common casing ingredients. So it's broken down into four areas. So that's sweeteners, humectants, acids, spices and essences. No, I can't, that third one or second one there is hard to get my lips around. However, so sweeteners. So typically that would be sugar, honey, molasses and corn syrup. And the humectants, so that's basically something that keeps something moist, is glycerine, propylene, glycol. Okay, so there's two there. That's glycerine and propylene glycol, and they're there to retain the moisture. And then acids, so that would be vinegar, citric acid, which adjusts the pH value for a smoother smoke, apparently. There you go. And then spices and essences, so this would be licorice, vanilla, cocoa and cinnamon and the likes. Now these are all familiar to us all now, aren't they? Now as we're going through this you think, oh yes, yeah, I get that. Now there are a couple of application methods for the casing. Okay. Firstly, tobacco leaves are sprayed or soaked in the casing solution before being pressed and aged. So at the stage before they're getting aged and before they're going to be put into a press, they're sprayed with these solutions. Or the casing is absorbed but does not dominate the whole tobacco taste. So what that basically means is that you apply the solution to the tobacco, you put it in the press or in the aging process beforehand, and the casing is absorbed into the tobacco itself, but it doesn't override or dominate or take from the actual natural tobacco flavouring. So casing is quite a delicate process. Okay, you could get that wrong very quickly if you put too much of a, say for instance you're putting some spices in, you put too much licorice in. We all know licorice is very strong, and that would overpower and just literally take over the whole flavour, and there would be no flavour of tobacco left at all. That's not good. So that's why it takes a long time to get, when they're bringing out a new process, that it actually produces the right flavour that they're actually looking for. So there's many iterations of of a flavouring or a casing or a topping before they get it right, and that goes for all of them. So that's casing. It's kind of self-explanatory really when you think about it. The next one is a topping, and there's, you know, the definition of that is the topping refers to the application of flavouring after the tobacco has been cased and processed, usually just before packaging. Alright, so that's after that whole process. So you can still case with a flavouring and still add a topping to it. Okay, it's not usually one or the other. Quite often it's both. And why do they do that if you've already cased something? Well, because as we've already learnt, that casing is quite delicate. This adds a more pronounced and often aromatic flavour to the tobacco, and it enhances the room note, which, you know, we all like. You know, typically it's as part of the test, isn't it? The room note. What is it? Pleasant, tolerable, and whatnot. So that's what the topping does. So it gives you this more of a pronounced flavour. And once again, too much topping takes over, doesn't it? And that in itself is not a good thing, as we all know. All right. So, some common toppings, and they're about, it's once again split down into 4 areas. So fruit, extracts, liquors, spices, and floral essential oils. All right. So obviously for the fruit ones, the ones that we're all familiar with is cherry, apple and peach. And liqueurs, rum, bourbon or brandy. Spices, clove, anise and nutmeg. And floral essential oils, rose and lavender. Okay. Now I'm fairly sure at this stage you're all beginning to realise, these are all sounding quite familiar. And yes, they are. Now there are obviously more flavourings than what we've just mentioned there. These are just the most common ones. And the application method is quite simple. Spraying or mist onto the cut tobacco. And then this is typically lighter than casing, but more noticeable in aroma. Okay? So this is once the tobacco has been cut, it's sprayed or misted on. So that's the topping. So basically, I mean, the secret, so the hint is in the name, isn't it? It's topped, it's put on the top of it after it's done. Flavouring or aromatizing, how you pronounce that, I'm not quite sure. So this is the one that we always kind of think, oh, the flavouring is this and the flavouring is that, forgetting that there's already been casing and topping added. All right, but this is a stronger, more direct addition of flavouring, often used in aromatic tobaccos. I'd say it's more than often. And the purpose is it gives you like a distinct flavour. For instance, vanilla, whiskey or cherry, and it makes the smoke more fragrant. So once again, the room note is further enhanced by this extra flavouring. And some common flavours. So we have three areas: artificial and natural extracts, alcohol-based infusions, and essential oils and synthetic flavours. Okay, so for the artificial and natural extracts, so that's obviously vanilla, chocolate and maple. Alcohol-based ones, Scotch, rum and amaretto. And the essential oils, excuse me one moment. Back again, sorry about that now. Important phone call from the wife. Have to answer that phone. So where were we? Flavouring and aromatizing. So we're at the essential oils and synthetic flavours. So some of these, a bit like, there's menthol and cinnamon oil. Now I don't think I've come across menthol in pipe tobacco. Well, at least I don't think so. Maybe I have without realising it. And cinnamon oil. And the method for applying this is quite simple. It's applied in stages, as in pre and post fermentation. So before it's fermented or after. And it can either be sprayed, tumbled or soaked into the tobacco. Alright. So those are the three areas. So what are the differences? Well, we have, first of all, casing. The purpose of this is it gives added smoothness, moisture and a subtle sweetness, and its intensity is quite mild, and it's applied before fermentation. Okay, then topping. This is aromatic enhancement and room note. It's quite a medium intensity usually, and it's applied after processing but before packaging. And then we have flavouring, which is quite strong and gives a dominant taste. Its intensity is high and it's added at different stages, pre and post fermentation. Okay, so that all makes sense. Are you all with me so far? Good. So for some blends now, some examples of some blends that we can go through here. So we've got cased, topped and flavoured. So let's go with the cased one first. So Virginia tobaccos, they're often lightly sweetened with sugar or honey. And then topped, such as English blends, have a light spice or fruit essence. And flavoured, such as aromatic, would be like cherry Cavendish, vanilla custard or rum soaked blends. So go through some of the classic blends now and their methods. So let's start with the first one, a Virginia based blend, which is sweet and bright, and Baren Virginia #1. So the casing will be sugar, honey, and this is to mellow the natural tang of the Virginia leaf. It's got a topping which is light citrus or floral essence, which enhances the natural sweetness. And then the flavouring, which is minimal, because it just relies on the natural tobacco flavour and taste. So there's probably not any in there. And then let's look at the Burley based aromatics. They're like the nutty ones, smooth and nutty, aren't they? So there's one here, Sir Walter Raleigh aromatic. I've not tried this one, but it came up as a suggestion, so I put it in. So casing is cocoa and licorice, which reduces the dryness of the Burley. A topping of vanilla and caramel, which adds a dessert type note, and a flavouring of light rum or bourbon mist for depth. So there's quite a lot in that one, isn't there? So cocoa, licorice, vanilla, caramel, rum. There's a lot happening in that one, isn't there, in Sir Walter Raleigh? And this is a good one. Some English blends. So these are usually smoky and a bit spicy. So the example here is Dunhill or Peterson Nightcap. So the casing, interestingly enough, is vinegar or citrus to balance the Latakia's smokiness. Topping of whiskey or port wine, which just adds a little bit of complexity. And then the flavouring, well, there's none. But it's something that's quite interesting there, isn't it? There is actually a casing and a topping, but it's not noticeable, is it? So these processes are there to enhance the natural tobacco flavourings and tastes and qualities. All right, and that's the important thing to remember here. They're not all about flavouring, it's about enhancing, about helping nature. And then we have these next section, which is the heavy aromatics. These are the really heavily flavoured ones, like dessert type ones. So for instance, Sutcliffe Multi Dolce. Alright, so that casing there is heavy corn syrup and honey for moisture, a topping of vanilla, caramel and fruit extracts, and then also a flavouring of multiple layers of liqueur, amaretto and Irish cream. And when you put all that lot together, that is incredibly sweet, which Italian, very sweet, multi dolce, that's what it means. So, hope you're bearing with me now at this stage now. I think it's quite interesting, isn't it? But for instance now, we could have a look at some DIY recipes ourselves. I know, like one of our regular followers, Gary there, Gary the Tobacco King, or Baren as we call him. We've got, how many have I got? 3, I think. Let's have a look, 3 or 4? 3. So, a basic Virginia casing for 100 grams of tobacco. Ingredients: 2 tablespoons of honey dissolved in warm water, 1 teaspoon of sugar and 1 teaspoon of glycerin, and that's for the moisture retention. And the method is to mix the ingredients into a thin syrup, lightly spray onto the Virginia leaves and press in a jar for 12 weeks to ferment. So Gary, you've got to be patient. 12 weeks, alright? Alright, that seems quite simple and straightforward, as long as you can get hold of glycerin easy enough. And glycerin seems to be in quite a few of these, so I'm not sure where you get that from, but I'm fairly sure the internet can help us there. Next one, vanilla and rum aromatic topping for 50 grams of tobacco. So the ingredients are 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon of dark rum and half a teaspoon of glycerin. And the method is to mix the liquids together and lightly mist over the tobacco and let sit in a sealed jar for 35 days before smoking. So you just need to choose a tobacco, probably something that's a little bit bland. Like Frank, when you sent me that one there from Asda, was it? Or I can't remember, was it Asda? Probably work with that one, to be honest. But and that'll just make it like a vanilla rum aromatic, wouldn't it? But the tobacco flavours wouldn't be very strong on that one, so maybe we could choose a different one that's a little bit more flavouring. Or you could still do it just with normal Virginia leaves, but I'd suggest not. And then C, spiced Cavendish flavouring. So for 100 grams of Cavendish, so this is just pure Cavendish. So Gary, I know you're interested in doing this. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon extract, 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder dissolved in warm water, and half a teaspoon of clove oil, very sparingly. So you might not want half a teaspoon, to be honest, because it's really, clove oil I can imagine would be really strong. And then you blend them extracts into a fine spray, and then you apply to the Cavendish, and then you heat in an oven at 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 65 degrees centigrade for an hour to set the flavours. Now all of these are all readily doable, aren't they, as a DIY project. I think we could all do this. The trick would be to get in a nice mister, one of those like ones that you can pump and then just spray, but you want a very fine mist, it to come out in a very fine mist. You don't want it to come out heavy because it'll just blast the tobacco and be too wet, but easily to do. So here's some tips for the experimenting. So start light. Too much flavouring can make tobacco soggy or harsh. Okay, use food grade extracts. I mean, that stands to make sense, doesn't it? Why would you want to use anything else but food grade? So avoid oils that irritate lungs, that can irritate lungs. Okay, so like these aromatic oils and things, yeah, it might not be the best. And then age after flavouring. So leave at least 14 weeks, or it says 14 weeks improves blending. So you need a bit of patience for these. And then just make small batches and test them before going into a large batch. Okay, so just start off small, get it right, and then when you think you've got it right, then leave it for a little while, and then if you're happy, then go forward and do it on a bigger one, because you'd be just wasting tobacco otherwise. So here's some original recipes now, okay, that we're all familiar with. So this is the one I'm smoking right now, Baren Dark Twist Bowl Cake. So this is Virginia and Burley Twist, and this profile is deep fermented sweetness with dark fruit and molasses. Okay, and it has a casing and a topping. So the casing, the primary casing, so it's primary, secondary and humescent, which basically is in an order. So primary, so this first one would be sugar molasses syrup, which creates the black Cavendish effect. Then the secondary one is honey or treacle, which enhances the natural Virginia sweetness. And then the humescent, which is glycerin, which keeps all the moisture together. Okay, so that's the casing, and as we know, that's added pre at the beginning. And then topping, which is after, rum or brandy. It says light application, more for fermentation than overall flavour. Prune fig extract, hints of dark fruit in the background. And then licorice root. Remember that licorice root as a kid? I remember chewing that. Loved that. It's a subtle anise note, common in Danish twists. And why it works: the twist cutting and pressing method intensifies the natural sugars, creating a rich, almost wine-like taste. And unlike heavily topped aromatics, the flavouring is subtle and when integrated, and I can definitely agree to that. It really is a wonderful, wonderful blend. This one. Richard, the pipe has gone out and it's windy. What am I going to do? I'll show and a bit more tobacco here. I think we started again. I do like this. I'm very fond of it. If I can get this lit now in the wind. There we go. Now the next one, very popular blend. Peterson Early Morning Pipe. So this is a light English Balkan, which is profile of mild smoky, tea-like with citrus and spice. My daily smoke, as in my early morning, my first pipe of the day. So this does a casing, and it is citrus zest, likely lemon or orange to brighten the Virginias. And then there's vinegar wine, which has a light application to balance the Latakia's smokiness. Okay. And apparently there's a flavouring stroke toppering. Bergamot oil, a signature Earl Grey tea note common in classic Balkans. That's interesting. Whiskey or sherry, very faint, adds depth without sweetness. And then spices, so there's hints of cinnamon or clove, but barely detectable. Interesting. It's amazing how they've broken this down, isn't it? And why it works? Well, the toppings complement, they don't mask the Orientals and the Latakia. They complement it, and I have to agree with that. And then the citrus casing lightens the blend for the morning smoke, and it does. You do get all that. Now that I'm thinking about it, you can feel that whole thing when you smoke it, can't you? Now the final one I chose was Erinmore Flake. So this is a Virginia Burley flake, slightly aromatic, isn't it? And the profile is juicy, fruity with a distinct floral apricot note. So it has a casing of sugar and pineapple juice. Old rumours suggest this was used historically, so I'm not sure about the pineapple anymore. Citric acid, which balanced the sweetness. And the topping and the flavouring, allow me to turn the page over, of apricot and peach essence, which is that tropical flavour that you feel. Then there's floral essences, likely to be rose or geranium, which gives that unique Erinmore flavour profile, doesn't it? And vanilla rounds out the fruitiness. There's not much vanilla in that really, is there? So I'm assuming these are all, like as I said, it's just, it enhances. Like it says, why does it work? Well, the flavouring is bold but not cloying, unlike many aromatics. It doesn't ghost pipes heavily. I don't think it ghosts them at all. And the flake preparation lets the flavours meld seamlessly within the tobacco. Yeah. So, that's very interesting, isn't it? Now, how about this, some DIY clones? So once again, for you people that want to have a good go at making a copy of these, excuse me, So let's try a dark twist inspired rose flake. So 70% Virginia, bright and red, and 30% Burley. The casing is 1 tablespoon of molasses plus 1 teaspoon of honey dissolved in 50 millilitres of warm water plus 1 teaspoon of rum. The method is to casing the tobacco lightly and roll into a tight rope. Press into a vise for 2 weeks, then slice into coins. So, depending on how much of this you put in, will depend on how long the rope is, will depend how big the vise needs to be. Alright, think on that, think about that. So then, after 2 weeks in the vise, you then can slice it into coins. You have to figure out how to make a vise. That's quite long. But it's definitely doable. Maybe you have a few vices and put some strips of timber between them, or metal or something, or I'm not too sure what. You have to be careful because you don't, whatever it is, you don't want it to damage or change the flavour profile, do you, of the actual tobacco. Now for an early morning pipe style blend. The base will be 50% Virginia, 30% Oriental and 20% Latakia. The casing will be 1 teaspoon of lemon zest plus 1 tablespoon of white wine vinegar and sprayed on lightly. And then, so that's before. Then after, topping, 2 drops of bergamot oil per 50 grams blend. Use sparingly. The bergamot oil, once again, is very strong. So you won't want to use, you'll be careful. Quite simple really though, isn't it? And then Erinmore Flake style aromatic. 60% Virginia, 40% Burley. Casing of 1 tablespoon of apricot jam dissolved in warm water plus 1 teaspoon of citric acid. Okay, nearly there. And then the topping is 3 drops of rose water and 1 drop peach flavouring per 50 grams. So there you have it. So some of the key takeaways. Dark twist. Fermented sweetness has minimal toppings and the casing does the work. Early morning pipe. Citrus bergamot enhances the orientals without need of sugar. And Erinmore, the fruit floral combo is unique, hard to replicate perfectly. Yeah, it would be. So there we have it. That document. Put a lot of work into that. Which is why I had a few videos for a while. But I will try and put a link to that now so that you can, each and everyone can share it and see what you think to it. It's only from my findings this, so there may be some inaccuracies. Don't take it as gospel. But I found it interesting. So hopefully you did too. And if you like the video, like it, hit the like button. Maybe give me a subscribe. If you didn't like it, hit the I don't like button. Make a comment. And if you're going to make some of these things, let me know how you get on with it. Because I think it's a great idea to be able to do. And just to experiment. You know, it does take patience. Okay, please note that. This is not something that you can do overnight and be ready in the morning. It doesn't work that way. So that, after reading through this, I think it made me appreciate the amount of work that the blenders do and the guys and girls that actually design these tobaccos and come up with new flavourings and how they get them to work, because it's not easy, is it? There's a lot of trial and error going on here. But basically those are the differences now. So Frank, hopefully that's helped you and many others that have asked the difference between casing, topping and flavouring. There we go. Sun's still shining. It's a wonderful day still. I think I'm going to go and enjoy another bowl of Baren's Dark Twist. Alright, thank you very much for your patience and listening. You don't need to take notes. I will put this document up there one way or another and you'll be able to get it. And if I can't, I can email it to you. Alright, so once again, thank you so much. Good luck.